This opening session is about the big picture, dementia and church, and I am delighted that Bishop Michael Ipgrave and Clive and Barbara are with us for this session. After coffee, we're going to go on to share the toolkit. This is the toolkit that's been used to date by me and 3 colleagues, and there are 3 reasons that we're sharing it more widely at this stage. First, the charitable funding has come to an end in the last few months that funded my colleagues' roles, and I do want to say a huge thank you to Mike Bridgewater and to Sue Parker for all they have done in their paid roles in recent years. And it also speaks volumes that you're continuing to be part of the Dementia Friendly Churches network on a volunteer basis, and that you're here today. So thank you both. We started our 4-session course 6 years ago, and it's now settled enough to be able to share this toolkit more widely, which is a really good landmark. Also, hand in hand with that, our Dementia Friendly Churches our network has developed to this point where there's a wider group of us who are well placed to be able to use the full toolkit and to lead sessions so that we can reach out more widely. So quite a landmark in terms of developments on Dementia Friendly Churches. And we're working together from here. So not only today, but as we go forwards, it's teamwork, and we'll learn as we go together and support one another as we find out how we best use this toolkit locally. So the pack that I hope got through to everyone, there should have been a hard copy pack, that training material that arrived through the post. And that included this timetable for the day. The one thing, so our first bit, our opening session, and then after a coffee break, we'll start with the toolkit. And I've been giving more thought about how we pace ourselves. So the one thing I want to just point out is the session after lunch is an optional session. We'll know as we get to the lunch break what capacity we feel we've got for the rest of the day. I'll talk more about that then, but I just want to say we all need to pace ourselves today. It's not aiming to be a marathon, so that's an optional session that we'll talk more about before lunch. And by the end of the day, we'll be just thinking about next steps and how we go forwards from today. So this session, we're going to just look at starting points, and then we'll be talking to Clive and Barbara before we look a little bit more widely at the impact of COVID-19 for people with dementia, and at our next chapter on Dementia Friendly Churches, and then Bishop Michael will speak to us towards the end of this opening session. So, starting points, and for those who have been to the 4-session course, you'll be familiar with the way we often check in head and heart. Where are we coming from today? What's the mix of facts and feelings as we sit down for today's session? And it may be more one than the other. It may be information you're wanting, more the head side. It may be heart level, more the people who you're journeying with at the moment, or it may be a mix of the two. And just to let you know, for me, the starting points, many of you know, it started personally with my father's diagnosis of dementia 11 or 12 years ago. That picture is of my parents and my children, and my dad died a couple of years ago, but we journeyed together, learning lots from him on the heart level as we did that through the years as his dementia advanced. And then our Shifnal Forget-Me-Not group, we started that 7 years ago, and we meet once a month to share tea. We're back meeting in person, but doing it carefully within the rule of 6 now. But that group's still very much at the heart of things for me. And then the Dementia Friendly Churches role that I've now been doing for 6 years. So those are my starting points. We're going to go into breakout groups now, just for 5 minutes, and we'll be using these breakout groups during the day. So we're going to have just a brief meeting now for 5 minutes, really a chance just to give your name and your church, and just a very brief sentence on whether it's more head or more heart, or a mix of the two for you. Alongside that, there may be hopes and fears and questions for today. Those we'll be looking at in a breakout group just as we start after coffee, but I'm aware those may well be things you want to share. But to keep this first breakout session brief, let's just try and share name and church, and whether it's more head or more heart, or a mix of the two for you. Let's now do what we're committed to do at the heart of Dementia Churches, which is asking and involving people with lived experience. Barbara, delighted to welcome you both, and if you can unmute yourself, love to have a bit of conversation. We first met a couple of years ago at the Shropshire, Telford and Wrekin Dementia Action Alliance, and Clive, you were diagnosed with dementia a few years back. I wonder for you, what's changed and what's challenging since your diagnosis, Clive?
Changes are that things are slowly, I feel, getting worse. My balance is bad through the frontal temporal. A weird one that, as you say, everybody's different. A weird one for me is that I've lost all pictures in my head. I can't picture anything. I just don't picture anything. It's just a blank screen for me. And that's weird and frustrating as well.
Yeah.
And it's the frustration more than anything, I think. Yeah.
That's so understandable. Things you used to be able to do that just aren't so easy these days.
Yeah.
And how have your family and friends responded, Clive, to your diagnosis?
I've got 2 children, a son and a daughter, both in their 40s. My daughter was very tearful, and she's worked in the medical profession. She's an ambulance management controller, so she understands more about it. But my son basically has buried his head in the sand. He doesn't talk about it, never mentions it, carries on as if there's nothing going on whatsoever.
Right. And how's that for you? What's the impact of that for you?
I don't try and put pressure on them. He'll come around to it when he does. He's my son. I love him just the same.
Yeah, you understand. Well, yeah, that's great. But just talking to help us who are listening today, what's the most helpful response for you now?
You mean from other people?
Yeah, from other people.
I think that they understand without being condescending and smarty comments. It's so often you get a comment, they'll say, "Oh, you've got dementia. Well, how's that affect you?" And I tell them, "Oh, I'm like that." And that's one of the worst things people say. When I try to explain to them how it affects me, you think you're bad, multiply that by 10, 20 times, and that's the area I'm in.
Okay. Yeah. So really listen to what it's like.
Yes, listen and take in and accept what I'm saying.
Yeah. And one of the things I think you and Barbara are both amazing on is that you're very open about talking about dementia, so you don't mind people asking you.
Not at all. The more I can do to get it out there and the understanding, the better.
And And lots of us already know who've met you and listened and learned from you how much you do in that. And you know, wonderful that you're here today, just helping us to understand a bit more. I'd love to know a bit more about the COVID-19 restrictions this strange season and how that's impacting on you, Clive.
To be in the house on our own, that side's not been a problem. The bit I miss is, although we'll have Zoom meetings, and I go to some of the dementia Zoom meetings, it's not the same as meeting people face to face, and that's the thing I miss, is to be able to sit with people and talk with people face to face rather than over a computer screen.
Yeah, it's not the same, is it? It's
not
a
the
good
same,
plan
no.
B, but not the same. Yeah. And I think one of the things you're amazing on is you often seem to keep hopeful and positive. What are the things that keep you going and help you to be positive and hopeful, Clive?
To be able to talk with friends, and like we do with this, and to be able to help. I feel that gives me a purpose in life, to be able to help and get it out there. And I look around and there's always somebody far worse off than me.
Right. Yeah. And again, I find you help me as we all embrace the changes and challenges of the restrictions, that idea of looking out and seeing of how can I help, what can I do to help, where can I connect with people, and just recognizing, other people are worse off. What have I got to be thankful for today? That's really thank you. And Barbara, turning to you, I wonder about even using the word dementia, whether you're comfortable with that, or what you feel about it, and whether things have changed for you on that.
Yeah, I suppose I don't really mind. I mean, as you know, Sarah, this is my third whammy at it. My mum had it, my dad had it, now Clive's got it. It's not very fair, is it? But there you go.
Absolutely.
You get on with it. So, no, I don't mind the word dementia. Clive's got it, and that's it. And we do what's necessary, don't we?
Yeah.
We try not to fall out.
Good on you. Good on you.
I try not to fall out with him, let's say.
So did you find, Barbara, that it took time to get used to Clive's diagnosis?
Yes, definitely. Even though we knew that before his actual diagnosis that he felt there was something wrong, and he had to chase it up with the doctors twice, when it actually came, you get that numb feeling. And then after that, for 6 months or so, I was really angry. Really angry. Horribly angry. I tried.
Angry with Clive?
No, not at all. Not angry with Clive. Angry with the situation. Feeling a bit sorry for myself. Like, this is the third time. It's not fair. Why me? Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, you get over that. And being a fairly practical person, I focus on the practical side of things.
And I know the groups have been really important for you, Barbara, haven't they? You've met a friend who's been quite a lifeline through one of the Shrewsbury groups. Yeah,
she's a carer for her husband, because for the first 9 months, I was searching for another carer to speak to, because although my mum and dad had it, I wasn't their carer, so it's a different situation. So I just wanted somebody to talk to about their experiences. And Anne, her husband, has dementia. He was diagnosed 12 months before Clive, so he's 12 months in front of Clive. And although they both got dementia, they've got quite stark differences, you know. But some of the things are the same. And when we get together, we talk about our feelings more than the practical side of things. So it's good to share that. And also the groups got Clive out of the house and gave him some independence, which at the minute he's missing.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, independence for people living with dementia is so important.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and another thing, he'll watch a lot of football on the telly, like sci-fi on the telly, and he'll say, "Oh, do you mind if I watch so-and-so? Do you mind it?" Not at all. You watch what you want to watch while you can watch it. And the same with his driving. He's not allowed to drive at night now, but he drives very well in the day. And we usually share the driving. But now I say to him, no, it's all right, you drive.
So you're encouraging Clive to do all he can do at this point.
Well, he can, yeah.
For both of you, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And what about the COVID-19 restrictions for you, Barbara? What's the impact for you in this season?
Much the same as Clive, really. You know, he can't go out to his groups. So that doesn't give us a break from each other. We're with each other 24/7, basically, which isn't healthy for any couple, I don't think.
You're absolutely right.
You know, although you love each other to bits, 24/7 is a bit heavy. You do need a bit
of space, don't you?
Yeah, 24/7 is a bit heavy.
She's got about to 6 feet down in the patio, the hole in the patio now.
Nearly there. Yeah, so it's a bit heavy in that direction, but we've still seen Clive's daughter. We came back from her house on the 23rd of March, the lockdown day.
Yes, it was.
We just got back in time on the Monday.
Right. Yeah.
And we've seen her once since then.
Okay.
We went down there.
Yeah.
We actually managed to see my son in Scotland in August, because we hadn't seen him since before Christmas. But now it looks as though we won't see him this Christmas, the way things are going.
Okay. But those family times have been really important, and they help you keep, again, positive and hopeful.
Yeah.
And I guess just keeping in touch with friends is still important, locally or on the phone or whatever. Yeah. Is there anything else that helps you keep you, Barbara, positive and hopeful? Because
just friends and family, really.
Yeah.
We had occasion yesterday. We went to a funeral of a guy in the Veterans Breakfast Club, and only 13 or so of the family went in.
Yeah.
But a lot of the veterans were there, socially distanced, lining the route at the crematorium for him.
Wonderful. Right.
So was really, really good.
Together. Yeah.
And we heard the service outside.
Okay. Yeah.
Which was really good. Yeah. And it was just to have a chance, a face-to-face catch-up.
Yeah. It really matters, doesn't it?
Yeah. Although it was a sad occasion, there was an upside to it.
Yeah.
Which was really nice, just to see those people and speak to them.
Yeah. And particularly there, grief is a social emotion coming together, but being together. And again, that's a wonderful, inspiring example of living with the restrictions, but finding a way that is in line with what we can do, of honouring your friend and of coming together. Well, thank you both. You've given us lots just to work with, and it's really lovely to catch up with you. Thank you for absolutely setting the tone for our day. You just give us so much in your honest sharing of how you approach things. Thanks, Barbara.
You're welcome. Thank you. I'll just leave it.
Oh, lots to learn, and really Clive and Barbara will just stay with us. And I'm sure if you remember nothing else from today, it's what they say that you will carry away from the training day today. And hearing what they've shared, there's a bit I want to share next about the impact of COVID-19 on people with dementia. And again, there's a little bit to share on screen here. And let's just move through to the right slide just to get a little bit more on this. So just some very quick figures, head level bit. 1 in 4 people who've died from COVID-19 had a dementia diagnosis. So COVID-19 has hit people with dementia disproportionately. And looking at people in residential care living with dementia, there's also been a 52% increase in non-COVID deaths. Really big impact there, which is telling us something about the intensified impact of COVID-19 restrictions for people with dementia. And there's been a bit of research done in Colchester that I came across recently through the Alzheimer's Society. And I want to share the headlines of that just briefly, because I think they set the scene for us about what the impact is. So there are a few voices there. Starting with the yellow speech bubble, this is a carer speaking. Looking after, people say looking after 24/7, but each hour is 60 minutes. It's every minute of your waking day. There's no let up. And let's follow through the carer comments, the blue ones. It's knowing that people care. I'm a bit of an emotional wreck at times. People can be so kind. It can sometimes be hard to accept help from other people, as I'm used to being the one who helps others. I'm so grateful. And then the carer, I'm in such a muddle with my husband dying so suddenly. I can't find all the papers that I need. My husband was buried at wherever the place was. No one at the funeral. I'm not really coping and not eating properly. I've been married for 72 years. You're suddenly cut off. Massive impact there. And then the voices of some people with dementia in the green box. Everyone says things have changed. For me, it stayed the same. This is my life. And the red box in the middle. I ate some cake with my neighbour. Will I get corona? At the right-hand side, nothing seems to be working at the moment. You can't see anyone. Everything's on the phone. I don't always remember. Those voices adding to what we've heard from Barbara and Clive this morning. And then the Colchester research just summarises the impact, and let's just have a read of this together. So first of all, the experiences with people with dementia. So that's the left-hand side. If we just go through the white words, the blue box, there's a disruption to normal routines. There's a lack of cognitive stimulation. There's a feeling of loneliness, of stress and anxiety, and this powerful one, a fear of being abandoned. There's physical and mental deterioration, and there's a risk of premature admission to residential care, and there may be risky behaviours and self-neglect. That's a category of challenges there, isn't it? And then at the bottom, 2 positives, and again, important we hear these: improved well-being when supported by friends and neighbours. You know, it's where our church community can make a difference across a whole local area, can't it? And acts of kindness from the community are really being noticed. And then the experience of carers, the white box of bullet points, the challenges that are linked to those experienced by the person with dementia, for example, disruption of routines, loss of services. There's an increase in caring responsibilities. There's no respite. So the informal means of support aren't available. Sometimes there's a lack of awareness of support and entitlement to it. And then there's the whole IT piece. For some people, there's no access to the internet, or they're not comfortable with using IT, so they're, grand phrase, digitally disenfranchised. They can't join Zoom and so on. And for some, not receiving timely or appropriate information, and also just finding isolation difficult, not just because of the impact on the person, their partner, but also on their own mental health and well-being. So a lot of challenges that are succinctly summarised there from the Colchester, that intensified impact of COVID-19 for people affected by dementia. And this summary slide, the last of the Colchester slides I want to share with you. So the blue things are the hard things, and the orange things are the good things. And the first thing perhaps to notice is there's more blue on that slide than there is orange. And the hardest things are to do with mental health, loneliness and respite, because they're the biggest in the blues. And then again, what can we do in the face of very real challenge? Well, again, inspiration for us as becoming more dementia-friendly churches, because befriending neighbours and community welfare calls, as well as Admiral nurses, those really are being valued as helpful things through this season. So I hope that bit of overview from the Colchester research just gives you a clear sense of how important it is that we're continuing to keep connections, if you like, continuing to work on dementia-friendly churches through the challenges of this season. And those research findings have been put into a helpful context by some recent research published by Professor Peter Kevern from Staffordshire University. We've worked closely with Peter Kevern since we started on dementia-friendly churches in this diocese, and a number of you helped with filling in questionnaires when we were doing the Dementia Friends Sunday services and the 4-session course in your area. And Peter's now published his research with David Primrose, and Peter was talking about it just about a week ago in a lecture he was doing. And there's more about this on the blog I've just posted. I'm going to put more about it in the newsletter. But his research was saying, well, what's the impact of our Dementia Friends Sunday services? So we've done about 100 Dementia Friends Sunday services, raising awareness using the National Dementia Friends programme. And we've made about 4,000 Dementia Friends in our churches across the Diocese of Lichfield. And we've done our 4-session course now in about 30 different places with well over 400 participants. It's nice to see a few faces from today actually on those photos. So Peter Kevern's research, what's the impact of doing those two things? And the interesting thing is his research showed that he did a knowledge scale and a comfort scale. So it's a bit of head and heart. And there wasn't that much change on the knowledge scale about information about dementia, but there was really significant change on the comfort scale, which is about how at ease we are being around people affected by dementia. So his really heartening research finding was that the small scale intervention that we're doing on Dementia Friendly Church, that we're sharing with the whole group of us here today, really does make a community level change, and it's making our churches more welcoming and more hospitable. And I just find that really helpful and encouraging to hear. So do have a look at the blog. As I say, it's going to come around on the next newsletter, and there's a summary in the blog of Peter's findings. the whole lecture is also really worth watching, either the 8 minutes where he's talking about dementia-friendly churches in our diocese, or the whole hour. So that's timely, and thank you to Peter for working with us and giving us that encouragement about community level change. At the heart level, churches becoming more welcoming, more hospitable. So what does that say to our plans on Dementia Friendly Church and the way we're taking these next steps? So, as many of you know, we've had for some years 3 steps of Dementia Friendly Church. So the embarking that Peter was his research was focused on, and then and that we're looking at today, sharing the whole toolkit for the 4-session course and the Sunday services. And then again, a number of you, most of you, involved in this, going further, making sure it's not just a flash in the pan, something we did a few years ago, but it's part of the way we are church in our area. It's at the heart of what we do. So we're using our local network meetings, we're using our newsletter to keep sharing ideas, and we're using the Dementia Friendly Church certificate to commit to 3 actions for the year ahead, different for each church and each church community, but saying, yes, there's always next steps we can take. And then we're extending, perhaps joining our local Dementia Action Alliance, or working on dementia friendly communities, or working with the local surgery or supermarket or whatever, to make so that we become more dementia friendly churches at the heart of dementia friendly communities. And we're trying to do more listening and understanding. Clive and Barbara just helped us to remember how important it is to listen to the experiences of people who are living this front line. We're giving space for lamenting and celebrating. So the lamenting, being able to say the tough stuff and be heard. It's painful letting go of things that you used to be able to do. And it's important that that can be heard, but also celebrating the life that can be found now. And we're partnering, we're working together, empowering one another, and perhaps most of all, empowering people with lived experience of dementia to share their voice, and in a way that supports and helps others. So that's our bigger picture, and lovely step forwards on our Dementia Friendly Church certificates, which are now out there in 60 or 70 churches across the diocese, because Bishop Michael has generously agreed to endorse the certificates, and he's going to be personally signing our certificates as they go out month by month from this point forwards, which is a wonderful personal commitment from Michael endorsing what we're doing. And now I want to hand over to Bishop Michael just to lead us in this last bit of our opening session.
Thank you very much indeed, Sarah, and good morning to you all. Thank you very much for the invitation to join with you. I'm sorry I can only be here for the first bit of what looks like a really useful day. I want to, first of all, to echo thanks to Mike and to Sue for their work, which has been inspirational, and also, of course, to you, Sarah, for all that you continue to do, and to all of you. I'm so proud to be Bishop of a diocese that takes Dementia Friendly Church seriously. I think the figures you saw from Colchester and from elsewhere emphasise how very important that is at this time in particular. It's important at all times, but it underlines the seriousness of it. And Professor Peter Kevern's research indicates how significant and effective, in a small way, our interventions can be. So thank you all for being involved in different ways in this, and it's great to see the progress that is being made, because being Dementia Friendly Church is a really important part of who we are as a family of churches in this diocese. I think I just want to highlight what for me are three particularly important words or themes as we approach Dementia Friendly Church, and those are listening, participating and learning. And the first is listening, by which I mean listening to individuals' stories. It was great and very moving to hear Clive and Barbara's story. And as Sarah said at the beginning of this session, when you know one person with dementia, you know one person with dementia, because all are different, all have different stories to tell. We're not cases, but individuals, each with their own biographies, each with their own set of relationships, each with their own experiences, and yet all equally precious in God's sight. And as I think of the people that I know who have experienced or are experiencing dementia, people in my family, people amongst my friends, people in the churches whom I serve, I can think of such a range of experiences and stories from them. And we just need to listen to each of those. And that means we need to create the culture where people feel confident to tell their stories in whatever way they can or share their experiences. And sometimes that's not easy, but also the culture where people feel comfortable in listening to those stories so that we can hear what the Spirit is saying to the churches through each person experiencing dementia and through those who care for them. That's part of the diversity of being the body of Christ. And I think Dementia Friendly Church is one of our key tasks which you're engaged in, is to help create that culture of listening and confidence in sharing. And then there's participating or sharing in our life together. I mean, that's an issue for any group and any community. But it's particularly so when we come as churches together to worship. And I think there is still, and this is something we need, and you are tackling as Dementia Friendly Church, there is still a bit of a kind of straitjacket expression that everybody will do the same thing in the same way, say the same words, and it's terribly awful if something goes wrong and someone doesn't do that. That for me is not what faith is about, or not an adequate expression of what faith is about, and therefore not an adequate expression of what worship is about. It's not just the things that we say, the things that we manage to remember, or the things that we do in church, or the way that we do them. Faith is something much, much deeper than that. It's profoundly plugged into who we are, and even more profoundly plugged into who God is, because it's about being remembered by God, held in his love, and us remembering the things of God and trying to hold on to that love of God. I am always deeply, deeply touched to realise how far down in many people with dementia, prayers and hymns and scriptures are buried and can be brought back to life. That wonderful moment of unexpected recognition. But even if that doesn't happen, and even if people participate in the wrong way or say the wrong things or do the wrong things or do it at the wrong time, we need to build, and I really thank you for helping to build that, this culture of not worrying about that, not worrying about getting things wrong ourselves, and not worrying if somebody else in our church gets something wrong, in inverted commas, because there are many, many different ways of participating in the worship that the body of Christ offers to the Father. This is not about dementia, but I've just recently, obviously, when I go to church, particularly when I go to the cathedral, which has now started daily evening prayer and sometimes twice a week daily evensong, I sit in the congregation and I wear a mask. And I don't know about you, but I've found that wearing spectacles and wearing a mask is really difficult to say anything at the same time, because my glasses missed up and I can't say anything. So I just don't say anything. And I don't always remember to stand at the right times or to sit down. And people kind of look at me and think, oh, if even the bishop can't do that, they'll help for the rest of us. But it doesn't really matter. I've just found a different way of participating, of being there and letting it kind of wash over me. We don't need to be so prescriptive in what we expect of people's participation, I think. So listening and participating, and most of all learning. We need to keep on learning from one another, and particularly to learn from people with dementia. I was very interested in Peter Kevern's research and that finding that, as Sarah parsed it, heart learning increases, probably more so than head learning, that sense of comfort in being around somebody with dementia. And I think more deeply, the sense of learning from people with dementia, because for me, that reminds me that all of us are dependent on God. All of us need God. I learnt that most powerfully in recent years when one of my beloved predecessors, Bishop Keith Sutton, who of course had been an immensely well-loved and very effective Bishop of Lichfield for 19 years, when he died 3 years ago. And you may know that he died after many years of experiencing dementia himself, and that followed, his onset of dementia followed after years caring for his wife Jeannie, who suffered from dementia. So he was both a carer and an experiencer of dementia. And when we got to his funeral in the cathedral, of course we celebrated all the great achievements in a very active and busy life. But the thing that I remember most is when his children showed me the Bible that he had used day by day in his last years. And particularly they turned to the book of the Psalms, which he struggled through to read, but tried to read Psalms every day, and would occasionally mark little remarks in the margin of the Psalms, particularly in some of the darker passages of the Psalms where you have a sense of wrestling with God. And I think you could have said, if I can just kind of give you this quote, which you may have heard before, he could have said in these wonderful words that Christine Bryden, an Australian Catholic who experiences dementia, wrote in a letter to the church. She said, "I may not be able to take an active part in worship, but I can receive the gifts of love and grace. This is the good news of the gospel for those living with dementia. We are equal before God in receiving divine love and grace." So thank you all. I can see all your faces on the screen. Thank you all so much for all that you do to make that simple but so important truth a reality through Dementia Friendly Church. I do think this is one of the most important things we do as a diocese, to show that we are a church that reflects the richness and variety of our communities, works together for the common good, and is committed to learning and listening from one another. I'd like us to finish. I don't know if Sarah's wizardry is going to produce this on a screen, but I'd like us to finish with the vision prayer for our diocese. And if we try and say this together, but it's probably wise if we want to avoid immense cacophony, if you keep your screens muted. But I invite you in wherever you are to say with me, as we follow Christ in the footsteps of St. Chad, we pray that the 2 million people in our diocese encounter a church that is confident in the gospel, knows and loves its communities, and is excited to find God already at work in the world. We pray for a church that reflects the richness and variety of those communities, we pray for a church that partners with others in seeking the common good, working for justice as a people of hope. Amen.